Hey guys, Tarke here. I want to give another update to the Fire Nova Mines catch. There's a few things that I've come across, and also let's just really soak in. Isn't this a pretty hideout? It's got flowers, it's got ambience. Whoa. So I managed to pick up this for, I think I paid 40 chaos equivalent. I got a pretty good deal on it. Basically, it's a +3 staff with open suffix crafts on it. I know that Searing Touch is a very cheap alternative, and again, the whole point of this character is testing out for next league. Searing Touch is really what I'll be using next league, but since I had access to +3, I thought I should try it out. The reason why a +3 is really nice, why it has the advantage over Searing Touch, is in power. I also managed to get hold of a level 3 in power for 19 chaos, which is pretty good. So you end up getting +3 skill gems with the Empower in a +3 weapon, meaning that when you have a capped out skill gem, if it's corrupted, you're looking at level 27 skill gem. If it's corrupted with level 21, uncorrupted level 26. That's obviously very, very huge. The other good thing about going with the staff over the one-handed shield is it allows you to rock a Comb's Heart. And Comb's Heart is something that I've been trying to push into these builds because when it comes for, if you want to do a league slider in the way that I'm kind of designing the characters, when I'm picking between, Fire Nova Mines, maybe stuff with Scorching Ray, is I want a build which, again, we don't know the patch notes, this is all could instantly change, but I want a build which can run any map mod. So it has to be able to run any map mod. It needs to have a pretty smooth start off the beginning, not needing any uniques off the bat, and casters still feel kind of fresh for me since I've spent such a long time with bows. Otherwise, Explosive Arrow would be like a really obvious choice because Explosive Arrow, well, to be fair, they could nerf double dipping on Ignite. But anyway, basically, they're two builds which don't use double dipping, so they're not going to get hit too hard in the next patch if double dipping gets nerfed, and they can run any map mod. Now, with this in mind, there are a few things that I kind of want to change about the tree and just some stuff I've noticed through the way that I've leveled the tree. So we're only level 70, right? We're still very low level. And we're currently using a Carcass Jack and just a bunch of random rares. Now, obviously, the gear I have right now is going to be a lot better than any gear that I'll have, starting off in a new league. Now, one thing which immediately screams at me with this tree is that the Acro, while it's a very nice defensive pickup at endgame, you don't want to pick up early because it just puts you out of the way by too many points. And if you're doing Fire Nova Mines, you already invest heavily into mines to start with, and it just means you get very little life, very little AoE early on, and until you get this AoE cluster, it feels very clunky unless you're running the increased AoE gem, which in a fresh league, you're not going to have a tabula, you're not going to be able to run all these extra links. So this bottom section of the tree, I kind of want to drop and get more life early on. Other than that, the build is performing pretty much as expected, and I'm happy with it. I am starting to find some minor annoyances, and that comes through Weave the Arcane and the way we're doing Fire Nova Mines. So normally for boss killing, what you would do is you would drop a totem with detonate mines in it, and then you just sit here and you just spam mines, and your totem can spam detonate. Now, if the totem detonates, we don't get the mana returns. So what we need to do is we need to lay the mines, then detonate them ourselves, lay the mines, detonate them ourselves, and you end up in this awkward, you can't also just single tap detonate mines because of I don't know why the Arcane works the way it does, but basically to get all your mana back, you need to hold detonate mines down. So there's sometimes this awkward thing where you have this inbuilt delay where you're waiting for your mana to shoot up. It doesn't seem like much now because you're well, no, Tarke, this seems really smooth. But it's something that once you're on the move and you're really going from pack to pack, sometimes you're in this awkward down space of, oh, hang on, I need to detonate a mine 4 screens away to then get enough mana to drop a mine now. And there's just a slight clunk to it which feels a bit off-putting. I don't know if this will get better or worse as I get more levels. The reason why it could potentially get worse is I'm going to get more levels on the Fire Nova Mine. The cost is just going to keep ramping up. This is currently on a 5 link. Yes, I'll naturally get some more mana, but I'm not going to get any more mana in the tree for my current investment. We've already got Mortal the Aether. We've already got Move the Arcane. That's really all the mana investment we're getting here. And at this point, it's just picking up life and a little bit of damage. So this probably won't go away, and it's frustrating. It feels really nice having Weave the Arcane. It feels really nice having that damage reduction. And as a core mechanic, it works in conjunction. But the times where it catches, it does feel kind of annoying. So one thing that I do want to test out with this character is I do want to test out Scorching Ray. Scorching Ray has a very similar tree. Obviously, you drop the mine nodes and redistribute them into different things, but they scale off similar things. They use similar curse setups. So it's something I will test alongside it, and I'm still sort of picking between the two of what I'm leaning more heavily towards. But I definitely like the idea of running a staff or a +3 bow. Ideally, you would have a +3 bow. The reason why you'd rather have a +3 bow is a +3 bow allows you to also run a quiver, which gives you just more flat life, because you can easily get 100 life tri-res quivers for very little currency. The downside is getting a +3 bow is generally, you know, a bit more of a nuisance to color. You need to have a crude bow base, so it has no item requirement. It's the preferred option, but it's something that you're probably not going to have access to right at the start of the league, whereas getting, you know, a Searing Touch or a cheap 5-link staff is generally going to be easier at the very start, but once you're in the fine-tuning of the character, you would rather be using a bow just to make sure that you're getting that really juicy quiver. The other nice thing about using a bow over using a staff, and this is also for Scorching Ray, well, this is purely a Scorching Ray thing, is, so ideally you'd have a +3 staff, which then also had some caster mods on there. Now, obviously, you can't get caster mods on a bow, but you can get the Leo craft increased damage over time. So you could have a +3 bow, and the way that you do that is you use the +2 5-gem essence, slam it on the bow, then you get the +1 all levels craft put onto that, and then you know, multi-craft the Leo mod on or whatever. And if you did that, and you had a Comb's Heart, and you had a Quiver with like 100 flat life, you have a lot of life potential, like a lot of life potential. I think that that's something that I'm leaning towards. So, with that in mind, the trees all changed a little bit. So right off the bat, let's jump back to this. So right off the bat, I think for a league start, I don't like Acro. It's something that, as I was saying, it's good mitigation for the points, but only in the late game, because it's no good having the mitigation early if you then lack the damage and the life, because it's Acro, it's not raw mitigation. You'll eventually get hit and you'll just die. So taking these points out of the build, you have quite a lot to play with. Filling these off the bat pushes you up. So just as is, it's like, okay, you have 5 jewels, 170% maximum life. That's sort of good enough. You then have the things of, okay, well, you can come through this way, do explosive impact, pick up Purity of Flesh, pick up this, pick up Light of Divinity, cut these 2 points, and you're looking at like a level 90-ish tree with, you know, good, well-rounded stats. In this case, he was dropping this for this. The other thing which instantly springs to mind is picking up another curse here. Running Tri-Curse is easy with this build. You can swap those 2 points around, have access to this if you want to. It is easy, it's very achievable. The curses you'd want to use would probably be, well, your base using Temp Chains and Flammability, so either add on Enfeeble or Alien Weakness, depending on if you want more defense or not. You'd probably throw in the Enfeeble, and the way that you'd probably manage that is have... See, again, this is where it's awkward, right? So if you want to do it with a staff, so I just recently mapped out the links for Scorching Ray on a staff, right? And if you look at Scorching Ray on a staff, it's very clean. The reason why it's very clean is you have your 6-link setup, so this doesn't really change for 5 over mines, that's basically the same. And because it's Scorching Ray, your third curse would be Vulnerability, which you get through the Witchfire Brew. Now, until then, you could, you know, just run vulnerability temp chains. Then when you get a Witch Eye Brew, you then get the third curse, you then run flammability, and you get the third curse through Dodgers. But it's much easier to run. It doesn't screw over your mana. Like, you can't blasphemy 3 curses as Trickster, because then you can't drop the mines anymore. And you don't get one of them easily onto a Flar, so then you need to have a Orb of Storms curse on hit setup. But you can't have a 5-link curse on hit setup, so you need to have someone on the Orb of Storms, someone on Blasphemy. But you can't really do that with a Combs, because you're limited to links, okay? So that means that with the Fire Divine, you're limited to only 2 curses, which is fine, but when you have access to it, it feels bad not being able to pick it up. It's just irksome. Cast Shaken, Mortal Cool, Duration, Vaal, Haste. Makes sense, very clean. And then Flame Dash, Fast Casting, Orb of Storms, and then you have open slots. So you actually have open slots for Scorching Ray, but anyway. So you can't really go for the Tri-Curse setup with the Fire Mines, because it doesn't quite work with it. So then you end up back with this base of 1-2 points, and I've spent so much time just staring at this base of 1-2 points. I've put the aggro in and out. I've filled in these nodes, taken these nodes out, filled them in, and it's a case of I'm just not quite sure whether the problem is even when you just throw in these points here, it's a very good rounded tree, but you just have the same issue that you invest so heavily into mines early on, and until you get to this like AoE section, the build feels just kind of heavy, and that's still like the good, like the build feels heavy to like 50 or 60, which for a league start is fine, but it'll be a bit of a nuisance to get through, but whatever. So obviously the tree changes for Scorching Ray, and there are a few different versions I've come up with. Now obviously I'm planning around being a Trickster, because I'm going to be testing on a Trickster for this particular character. So when I'm done with testing mines of this character, I'll then convert it into Scorching Ray, test that, see if I like Scorching Ray or not, because I haven't played with it yet this league. And then if I like it, then it'll be a case of, okay, how do I want to do this for the next league? Because Trickster isn't the only option for Scorching Ray. The really obvious options involve stuff like Trickster, Occultist, Inquisitor. I'll cover those later. But right off the bat, the tree for a life base is awkward. I prefer life to CI. Doing this to CI would be very easy, but I personally prefer life, so it makes sense to plan builds that I would enjoy more. You can come through this way, get loads of cast speed, get some life, get some stun interruption while casting, get some damage. It's not too bad, but this routing through which doesn't feel amazing. Then you can come down, get some life, skill effect duration, LE equilibrium, skittering runes, life, LE overload, more cast speed, more curse effectiveness, and another curse. So as mentioned previously, you'd run Tri-Curse with all this juicy curse effectiveness. You proc both the EE and the LE overload through Orb of Storms, because Scorching Ray doesn't count as a hit. It won't screw up the LE overload, the elemental equilibrium, so it would play very similar to the Fire Nova Mines. Just when you need the damage, you drop the orb, you get the procs, you clear through everything, you get some damage, you get some life, you get a lot of cast speed. You get something like 99% just raw cast speed from the tree, which makes the build feel very smooth, because turn speed is dictated around cast speed. I've done some research. Once you get to about 145 to 150% cast speed, that's where you sort of you cap out your movement speed, you cap out the rotations on the screen. Above that, you don't really notice it. So you want to hit somewhere between 100 to 140% cast speed to get in that nice little sweet spot. But yeah, this is a tree. I'm not too happy with it, but it's mostly a case of it's awkward getting through this section as life base. So Trickster for life base. The Ascendancy options are pretty decent for it, but it still doesn't feel that great. Walk the Aether just gives you cast speed. Cast speed is very important with Scorching Ray. It gives you free movement skills, which is whatever. Some more cast speed. You pick up Ghost Dance for the 2-pointer. It gives you some dodge, spell dodge, movement speed. Really good. Also gives you some cast speed. Patient Reaper is 40% damage over time. Some more cast speed. And you get 6% increased recovery of life, mana, and energy shield if you killed an enemy by your damage over time recently. Obviously very powerful. It gives us some damage, and it gives us souped up regen. This is a build which can't leech. Having really nice regen is a big win in my book. And then you get Swift Killer, giving you Frenzy Charge generation, plus 1 additional Frenzy Charge without a need to run Blood Rage, meaning you get a very juicy 4.2% passive life regen that you don't need to cut into, and whenever you kill something, this gets shot way up. So you get quite a sturdy character. It just has awkward routing through Witch, but the Ascendancy nodes actually all work in its favor for like a pure armor stacking, using Comb's Heart, using a staff. Like, it works, but it just feels a little bit awkward. So the next obvious option would be Witch. Again, this would be very good for CI base, but I want to do life base. That kind of just knocks it out, as otherwise you just don't really have anything that great. This is chaos conversion stuff. This is power charge stuff. This is for yes. So no, sorry. And then Inquisitor is another really solid option. The awkward thing with Inquisitor is that Instruments of Virtue with a staff or a bow just feels bad. You have this case of, if you were doing a one-handed shield, Instruments of Virtue is amazing, but as we've established, we're trying to plan around combs and using +3 weapons, using stupid empowers to get really high levels of Scorching Ray. So you would have to either be leap slamming or using blink arrow to proc the cast speed off this, which just would be incredibly frustrating and just feel ridiculously clunky. So that kind of knocks out the main attraction of Inquisitor. This whole section is obviously really good, but this is the big drive, and so Trickster kind of becomes better than this, which is a shame because, you know, it's in the right part of the tree. Briefly, the Marauder options are all just kind of bad. Chieftain is terrible for Scorching Ray unless you're doing Iron Will, and even for Iron Will I think it's pretty weak still. You get some increased strength. This is the main nice thing about this 2-pointer. That's like the main nice thing about the entire Ascendancy, to be honest. Some fire damage, some life regen. The chance to ignite is wasted. 35% increased damage is okay. Some damage. The fire leech's life is wasted. You can't leech with Scorching Ray. The pen is good. The fizz is wasted, and the totem is wasted. And then Ramakora Sun's Light is kind of wasted unless you go really heavily into endurance charges. When you're your totem to kill a burning enemy, chance for you to get endurance charges. You get some damage. If you want to do a Righteous Fire version, Chieftain would be alright, but I don't want to do Righteous Fire because the second you do Righteous Fire, you then have an awkward time using staffs and bows unless you're doing stupid Leo crafts, and then suddenly you can't run no regen maps, and I want a build which can run any map mod. Berserker's more damage is nice, but then you don't make good use of anything else really. You could do Rite of Ruin just to reduce damage taken, but this is all attack speed, not cast speed. Warbringer is decent. Another bad thing about Chieftain, it has no cast speed inbuilt, so you'll really struggle with cast speed as a Chieftain, which is very important, and people overvalue Chieftain already, but the fact it doesn't have the cast speed feels really bad. Funnily enough, I think Ranger is your next best bet. And Ranger actually has quite a lot of potential. It skips the awkwardness of the Shadow start. As a result, it misses out on a lot of very nice damage over time, and damage over time here. However, you get to do other things. So both Raider and Pathfinder would be good options. Raider has quite a few advantages, so does Pathfinder. We'll cover Raider first. Now, the way you do the Ascendancy is also kind of wonky. So you can go through Quartz Infusion, Avatar of the Vaal. This is 40% damage. I know I need to update my passive skill, Tree Planner. But you get 40% damage, you get a bunch of movement speed, you get status element immunity, some dodge, and a bunch of movement speed, right? So that's all pretty solid. You can then come up this way to get 100% increased onslaught effect, which would be 40% cast speed, 40% movement speed. So you could do these top two routes to get a lot of cast speed and a lot of movement speed, or you could do a hybrid of Rapid Assault, Wave the Poacher, and Avatar of the Vaal to get some Frenzy Charge generation and still get some cast and movement speed. But this would actually be okay. As far as the tree goes, you'd be alright with mana because you'd invest very heavily into flask stuff. That would be enough, hopefully, to make your mana work alongside stuff like this. Life-wise, it's okay. You still get to pick up most of the good stuff. So it all kind of like works and the points are reasonable. For Pathfinder, you don't get the cast speed, but you get a lot more raw defense. You get Master Alchemist, you'd go for Veteran Boa, and you'd go for Nature's Adrenaline. So you get all the Flask Charge effect, Flask Charges gained. This gives you crazy movement speed. We've covered this already, but with this alone, you'd have a base something like 180% movement speed when you pop an Adrenaline, which is really good. Reduced elemental damage taken is just a very nice defense. Someone wants to buy something. I want to buy Death's Harp, sure. He's gonna do the thing where he goes AFK. No. Surprised I'm even selling Death's Harp to 1 Chaos. Which one does he want? No. Sorry. So you get the reduced damage taken, more flask charges gained. You get status element immunity, 40% increased elemental damage. The chance to free shock ignite is meaningless. You get 10% fire penetration, and you get the flask charges gained. I'm pretty sure this works with Scorching Ray. I'm not 100% sure. I know that Scorching Ray applies a burn, and it's a special kind of burn which ignores stuff like ignite immunity. So does it count as a proper burn? Does that make sense? Someone can clarify that, but yeah. Does it count as its own separate burn, which just happens to scale with burning damage, or does it count as an actual burn? Because you can use it on ignite immune monsters, like Itziri, for example, and if it's still counted as affecting a status element, having 100% increased flask charges gained all of the time would obviously be a very nice benefit. If it doesn't, it's still a decent 2-pointer for the fact that it gives you 10% pen, but that would be quite an important clarification. And then obviously you get some movement speed. Now, you don't get any cast speed from this, which feels really bad, and because of the cast speed alone, Raider probably is just the default choice. But depending on how Veteran Boa worked, there could be some potential there. You have access to all of the flask stuff, you're close to which, if you do the Pathfinder, making a little stretch to get Alchemist is well within your reach. Even for a Raider, it's worth it, you just do it a little bit later. You get both the skill effect duration classes, making maintaining your Scorching debuff very easy. It also makes stuff like Vaal Haste just infinitely active. Again, this is a nice way to bridge the cast speed, make sure the cast speed is nice and high. You do miss out on some cast speed on the tree, however, and you do miss out on a lot of just raw cast speed from stuff like Trickster. So those are kind of like my base options for anyone who's played Scorching Ray, who has some input. Anyone who has some input for the Fire Nevermind tree, leave them below, give me just your thoughts and suggestions. I'm Tarke, I'll give you updated once I've gotten the character into maps. Have a good day, bye bye.